Hey y'all, Joseph Arlong, the sumo-sized ginger coming at you today. And today, I'm going to take and work on my audiobook. I've told you guys before that I'm an author. My author name is Riley Amos Westbrook. I have several books out already, and this is going to be only my second audiobook that I'm working on. I figured as long as I'm doing it, I may as well make it into a video. That way you guys can see the process that I go through in order to take and really make it into an audiobook. Now, this book is an interesting one. It's based off of when my wife used to play a game called Grand Theft Auto. And in this book, we've included many of the different elements from the game that she loved to do. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Urban Punk. Chapter 1. Sarah slowly stretched as she sat up from the bed, her green silk and black velvet bedding wrapping around her snugly. She vigorously scratched an itch on her scalp as she tossed her blankets away. She threw her feet to the floor, wiggling her toes on the hardwood floor beneath them. Reaching out, she grabbed her silver glasses from the nightstand next to her bed. The petite woman made her way to the kitchen, pressing the button on her cherry-red coffee maker as she passed into the bathroom. She removed her glasses and squinted in the mirror, rubbing the sleep from her eyes as a flash of irritation passed through her at the sight that stared back. Her long dishwater blonde hair was frizzy and wild. The sight of the stringy strands always left her feeling unattractive the rest of the day. "I should just shave my whole head," she said with a hint of annoyance. She shook her head and turned to the tub, unwilling to sacrifice her hair. She pulled back the shower curtain and climbed in, leaving the curtain open. She hated the claustrophobic feelings that the plastic and fabric partition filled her with. The hot, humid air never failed to make her breathing uncomfortable. Sarah suffered through the shower, feeling the water thundering against her skin. Bombarded with the sensation of a million little needles, the moving wetness never failed to impart a sense of unease. The way the water cascaded down her as it dripped from her body made Sarah wish she had taken a bath. She hurried through the motions of cleaning, wanting to escape the torture as fast as possible. Blindly, she reached for a towel, grabbing one from the towel rack and using it to dry her face and body. The towel was scratchy, almost painful as she rubbed it lightly on her skin. That was the last time she would ever listen to a department store clerk. She was still half wet when she couldn't stand the feeling anymore. She strode through the apartment naked, heading for her bedroom, and began looking through her clothes. She pulled socks, a few shirts, and various colors of jeggings and slacks out of her closet, laying them on the bed to analyze the potential outfits before choosing the combination she liked most. She threw a small handgun next to it, casually tossed a few spare ammunition clips near the handgun, then began to get dressed. The camouflage jeggings hugged her hips and thighs as she pulled them over her butt, almost like a second skin. A dark olive green shirt was next, cut high to the neck, but tight enough to hug her figure and long enough to properly curve. Last was her favorite part of any outfit, a long black leather trench coat she had owned since high school. She luxuriated in the garment's weight as it settled with a well-practiced flourish of movement onto her shoulders and back. Sarah carefully laced up her high combat boots, tying them tight, then returned to the bathroom to style her hair in a low four-strand braid and apply some golden eyeshadow and black eyeliner. She went back into the kitchen, grabbing a large travel mug, and began pouring the entire pot of coffee into it, then adding liberal amounts of non-dairy creamer and sugar to the dark liquid, before heading to the door. She stopped herself as she remembered she'd forgotten a few items. Sarah grabbed a random beanie from next to the door, covering her head before running back into her bedroom, pulling open the top drawer of her dresser. She looked down on an assorted collection of unused sex toys, a sense of glee filling her as she reached in, pulling out a large pink dong and stuffing it into her purse. The petite woman closed the drawer, then exited her apartment. The sun blazed in her eyes, blinding her as she stepped from her building. Sarah glared at the ball of fire in the sky that seemed to want to roast her like a peanut. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a pair of clip-on sunglasses and slapping them over the frames of her silver glasses. It didn't help enough. The sun's harsh light still all but blinded her. Irritably muttering to herself while rummaging in her bag for a minute or two, she pulled out a pair of dark brown sunglasses. With a flourish, they went on her face over the clip-on pair. Finally, some relief from that ball of fire in the sky. Sarah yawned as she walked down the street, drinking her coffee and spending time with her own thoughts. Her concentration was broken as she passed a group of kids in the park. There was nothing out of the ordinary, just kids being their normal, noisome, chaotic selves. Sarah rolled her eyes and continued on, thankful she was not burdened with any of the little monsters. The thought of that kind of responsibility terrified her. A different group of kids approached her as they walked down the sidewalk, a few licking ice cream cones. They varied in age and just looked to be enjoying a summer's day. Sarah walked through the group, not even attempting to get out of their way. She pushed past the children, tripping one of the kids, causing him to drop his ice cream. She didn't even have to break stride, continuing onward without bothering to apologize or look back. The protests of the children were like music to her ears. A rare smile spread across her face as she listened to them cussing her out. Joy suffused Sarah as she continued to walk to her destination, wondering what kind of mayhem she was going to cause today. She entered the office building her boss owned, walking towards a private elevator off to the side. The lobby was empty. Even if security had been there, they knew better than to confront her in the mornings. The lift shot up to the top floor, and Sarah stepped out into a spacious open room. Fossils and other artifacts lined the walls, prominently displayed with a plaque listing name and place of origin. The very first time Sarah ever entered this room, she had been overwhelmed by the scale and scope of what seemed an endless variety. One sword in this collection was 1,000 years old, while the oldest of the fossils were over 1 billion years old. Sarah had to resist the urge to run her hands over each individual piece. If the young woman had any weakness, it was ancient artifacts of all types. In truth, it was one of the best perks of working for Ross. He appreciated the priceless items as much as she did. She crossed into the wide-open space her boss kept for his office, walking around the mahogany desk to stare down over his shoulder. Numbers covered the page Ross was meticulously scrutinizing. He hadn't even noticed her presence yet. Ross's pale blonde hair was slicked back with gel. Sarah was tempted to see if she could knock on his hair, as it seemed rock hard. He was wearing a sky blue shirt that matched his eyes, a deep blue and green bow tie finishing his outfit. An intricately patterned long coat was set on a hanger in the corner of the room. Ross flipped the page he was looking at, made a notation in the margins, and finally deigned to notice his employee. "You're late," he said, his eyes hard. "Why are you late?" "I told you when I agreed to work for you, sometimes noon is just too early," Sarah said, stepping around to take a seat in one of the chairs in front of the desk. She put her black-heeled boots up on the mahogany while Ross glared at her. "So what am I doing today?" she asked, taking a brief swig from her coffee. "Today you're learning manners," Ross said, going back to the page before him. "Today you meet the person I've chosen to be your partner." "I'm a soloist. I don't work with a partner," Sarah said coolly, glaring at her boss over the top of her boots. "They get in the way." "Exactly why you need one. Mr. Smith called, and he told me what you did to his son, Harold." Sarah got a thoughtful look on her face. Harold. You mean the fop?" She'd known that prissy bitch since high school. Everyone thought he was going to come out of the closet at some point, but Sarah knew better. For all his girly attitude, he only did it for the attention. "Fop?" Ross asked, a bewildered look on his face. "Yeah, the guy who screws old women for fun. Looks like a pretty boy, likes to wear lace." A grin lit across her face. The things those old women say to him. How was I to know his fiancée didn't know? That had been a fun night, telling Rachel Mitchell what a dragon slayer is in the real world. It wasn't your place to interfere. Now his father's threatening to take his accounts away from me. Angry, Ross looked up from his papers, his piercing blue eyes stabbing into her soul. "I don't like to lose revenue. You need to apologize. I don't care what you do, but you make him happy." Sarah frowned at the thought of groveling. It always made her feel as if she was dirty, in desperate need of a shower. "You've never asked me to apologize. As always, anything sexual is off limits. I sacrifice my dignity nor my mental health to no one," Sarah said, still glaring right back at her boss. She was stubborn enough to die if he forced the issue. "I don't care. Just make him happy." Ross continued to glare at Sarah. Heavy footsteps broke the tension. "Ah, here's your partner." A large, rotund man wearing black sneakers and jeans with a t-shirt strode into the room, walking up to Ross with a grin on his face. His belly jiggled as he walked, but he carried his weight well. Though his footsteps thundered, Sarah could see the quickness hidden in his shuffling steps. This man could move like a ninja when he wanted to. "Ross, long time no see," the man said in a smooth tenor voice. His molten coppery hair was gathered into a low tail, long and luxuriously thick. It stretched down to the middle of his back. Sarah was already jealous. He had a grin that started in his bright blue-green eyes and lit up the room. His dimples were angelic on his soft baby face, ending with a flash of teeth. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she admired him. And then Sarah saw something that truly scared her. Her boss gave her new partner a smile that matched the man's own. A true and genuine smile that showed dimples Sarah had never seen before. The hardness that always filled her boss's eyes was gone, replaced by a genuine warm respect. Hello, Riley. You're right, long time no see. Far too long, far too long. So, what do you need my help with? The fat man asked, squeezing himself into the other chair facing the desk. Sarah struggled to contain a laugh as he wiggled his ass to fit into the seat better. I need your help cooling off a firecracker. I know that you used to struggle with anger issues, and that on several occasions they influenced you to make some regrettable choices. Ross gestured to Sarah next to Riley. She has issues with that. I do not, Sarah said coolly, attempting to keep a lid on her explosive temper. Ross eyeballed her with quiet reproach as Sarah tried to keep a blush from her face. He remained silent, a judging look in his eyes. Sarah failed, and anger lit a fire in her eyes. When she couldn't contain it any longer, she screamed out, "Fuck you, you fucking fuck! I'm not a fucking hothead!" Instantly, she regretted her outburst, but it was much too late. Riley sighed deeply before turning to her. You show your childishness when you cuss so often. Makes one think you lack the intelligence for normal conversation. Sarah's hazel eyes gained a golden hue as her anger flared. Who the fuck do you think you are to talk to me like that? You think I need you to explain this shit to me? Are you my mommy? She demanded, jumping from her seat. As her anger consumed her, she reached into her purse, pulling free the big bright pink dildo. I knew I brought this thing for a reason. She charged the fat man, who leaned back in the chair, tipping it over. Riley rolled backwards out of the chair, coming to his feet facing her. She was impressed by his agility, but she didn't let it slow her down. Sarah continued to charge, and he caught her on the back collar of her leather trench coat, lifting her from the carpeted ground and holding her at arm's reach. The petite, buxom woman flailed furiously in a futile attempt to hit Riley with the silicone dildo in her hand. Fuck you! Don't you ever call me a child! The dildo whistled past his nose. Sarah prayed that just once it would connect with his insolent, smiling face. In her opinion, he needed a reality check. Badly. Calmly, Riley reached out, snapping the floppy, bright pink dildo away from her with his free hand. He tossed it against the wall, then lifted her higher so he could look her in the eye. You better watch who you attack, little woman. Next time, I won't be so gentle. As she glared into those sea-blue eyes, Sarah begrudgingly felt her resolve melt away. She couldn't help but lose herself in the kindness and compassion she saw. It helped that they were absolutely beautiful to stare into. Something about this man, his entire demeanor, made her want to listen more than fight. With a resigned expression on her face, she meekly said, Okay, I'll calm down. Just put my feet back on the floor. She hoped she wasn't pouring it on too thick, but she never did anything halfway. By the time her feet hit the floor, she was calm enough to think. Her boss shook his head in shock. I think she likes you, Ross said, then glanced at Sarah. I honestly don't care what goes on between you two. You need to get a hold of your temper, and this is the first time I've seen you successfully rein it in. He turned to Riley. There must be something about you. She quit trying to shove that dildo up your ass. Normally, once she decides that, there's no stopping her. But now you see what I mean. A hothead. More likely to get you in trouble than you are to help her. But someone needs to work with her. You think you'll be able to handle it? Riley had a quiet laugh as he righted the chair and they all sat back down. I'm used to it. My sister used to chase me around the house with butcher knives for fun. The cocky attitude was back, and with it came Sarah's annoyance. She could believe he'd been chased by his sister with murderous intent. She'd been ready to shove her silicone blackjack into unpleasant spaces for the same reason. Ross straightened his tie. Well, let's get down to brass tacks, you two. I need you to keep Sarah out of trouble, Riley. I need there to be no fuck-ups while we're negotiating with the triads. He turned to Sarah, the smile leaving his face. And you will listen to him. You will not start trouble. And stay away from Jimmy Chang. I know you two have a history. That's the last thing we need for you to start another war with those neo-Nazi fucks. Ross sat back, steepling his fingers as he examined his employees. Oh, and if you fuck up, I will have both of you killed. I don't care which one of you fucks up. You'll both be punished for it. He dismissed them silently, going back to his numbers and becoming completely absorbed in them. Sarah rolled her eyes. She was used to Ross's threats. She gathered her few possessions, double-checking she had her sunglasses, and folded her hat up to stuff in a coat pocket. Riley shook his head, a perplexed expression on his face. He followed her from the room, humming softly to himself as they waited for the elevator. When the doors closed behind them, Sarah turned towards her new partner, shoving her finger right up under his nose. Let's just get one thing straight. You're not my boss. If I decide to listen to you, it's because I choose to do so. My advice to you, don't get in my way when I decide I want to hurt someone. She didn't think she could intimidate this gigantic man, but she knew she needed to establish ground rules. Give a man an inch, he will demand a mile. So you're telling me not to do my job? Riley asked, eyeing the little woman before him. She wanted to slap that idiotic grin from his face, but something told her it was part of his personality. You can do your job, but you need to understand that pushing me too far has repercussions. She settled back against the railing inside the elevator, waiting for the ride to end. So that's chapter 1 of Urban Punk, you guys. It was a fun story to write, and it's even more intense as time goes on. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave me a comment below, letting me know what you like best, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see y'all next time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Later.